I think most people who have a problem or issue with me have a problem or issue with themselves. I think that's really what it is. Like, I'm a positive dude. I came up from, from where I came from and, through struggling and adversity and made it. The underdog, the person who wasn't supposed to be here, food stamps, welfare. People are so used to, rappers, welfare, you came up, whatever. But it's like, nah, dog, like, I used to wake up with roaches on my face and eating powdered milk and shit. Like that's real.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Rob Markman. Yeah, you might not recognize the set. It's not our normal set, but trust me, this is For the Record, and this is a special episode. Came all the way to the West Coast to visit my man. He just dropped his new album, Young Sinatra 4. It's banging, boom bap, real hip hop. Everything that y'all asked for in the comments is here today. Logic,
What's up,
Bobby.
How's it going?
Chilling, man. Thank you for having us. Welcome to For the Record, man.
Thank you. That was a pretty ill-ass intro right there.
Was it?
Yeah, that was dope.
I just freestyled that. I just
You
did
snapped.
my Bobby Tarancino freestyle.
My guy.
Congratulations on Young Sinatra 4.
Thank you.
Dope project. Like, really, really, I think just a win for hip hop, for just, beats and rhymes. A lot of times we get caught up in all the other things that hip hop affords us and brings us and forget that it's just beats and rhymes.
Yeah,
and being
man.
the dopest you could be.
I agree. Just having fun. Just, showing and improving on the record. Totally.
So, I kind of wanted to get into this thing because, there are a lot of day one fans who understand all what Young Sinatra is about, and a lot of new fans who are like, oh, wow, I didn't know Logic had this side to him, this boom bap side. So I want to go back. To 2010.
Throwback.
All right, I want to go back to the Young Broke and Infamous tape.
Damn.
Because that was really the birth of Young Sinatra, the song.
Yeah.
You rapped over Lord Finesse's Hip to the Game.
Yes.
Which was also the freestyle that Mac did for Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza.
Yeah.
And you did this Young Sinatra song. I want to go back to that.
Yeah.
And who is Young Sinatra? The birth of Young Sinatra. Where did that come from?
Man, it just came from seeing cats like, Wiz Khalifa have Taylor Gang and Mac Miller have Most Dope. And like all these people had these things, and these kind of like alter egos and just vibes. And I wanted that. I wanted something like that. And then I had just got the idea. I always loved Sinatra and just the Rat Pack and everything they did and represented back then in their time. And I was like, how cool would it be if I kind of brought that to what I was doing? And after I did those raps, I just, like on the Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza or the Hip to the Game beat, it just came to me and I was like, yo, I'm just gonna call this Young Sinatra. And then it was kind of there, like, oh, this will be cool. And then I realized it could be something bigger. And I was like, what if I titled the whole next project? And I originally was like gonna not put that on Young Broke and Infamous, and I was gonna put it on the Young Sinatra mixtape instead. But I just thought it was so ill that I was like, no, because I don't even know, like that project doesn't even exist yet. Let's just put my best stuff forward that I have right now. And I put it there and man, that was it. That was the beginning.
I want to just talk about Mac for a second because he recently passed away. A huge inspiration to many, a personal friend of mine and an artist that I love. Man, I thought it was so dope for you on Young Sinatra 4 to give him a shout out and to talk about how much he had influenced you and acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And again, for a lot of new fans, you had always acknowledged that. Like you acknowledged that on All I Do.
Yeah.
And talked about Mac, and you would give shout outs. You're a guy who was never afraid to talk about the people who inspired you.
Never. You can't be, you know what I'm saying? And it's just wild, not to jump into it too early, but it's just a prime example. Whenever you hear stuff or influence in my music, like I love and am inspired, and it's like, it's like more okay to do some shit that's kind of like Nas did, 20 years ago, but it's not okay to be inspired by Jaden, who's like one of the dopest, of the younger generation. Like why? Because I'm an older generation and it's so close. Like, man, forget all that. That's why I reached out to him. I was like, yo, I think what you did was ill. I'm gonna do my own version of that. And give you the credit and the love and your producers and give them publishing and do it the right way. You know what I mean? And but I've always worn everything on my sleeve, and every time I've seen anybody, it's always love and they've always shown me love and appreciation right back for giving them their credit. You got so many MCs and so many people who will take flows and styles and this and that and just not and try to cover it up like it's all their own, and they ain't, nah, nobody inspires me, nobody this. Like, to me, that's bullshit. And yeah, whether it's Kendrick or Drake or Cole or whoever, like, yeah, man, they're amazing. I love them. I appreciate them. And yeah, if I hear a flow, I'm like, man, that's cool. I would do that flow like this though. And but I would talk about this or I would talk about that. So I've always, yeah, man, definitely with Mac and anybody else, I'll always show love. I will never not, show love. And I think me being able to talk about that and be so open has got me to this point. It's why the RZAs fuck with me and the Wu-Tangs and the Big Daddy Kanes and so many of these incredible artists that I've been blessed enough to cross paths with.
That's dope. And I didn't put two and two together with Jaden. So you really just have this pool of artists that inspire you. So is it for you that Jaden is no different than a Wale? Like, you almost pay homage to both.
There's definitely
there's a difference. Respectfully, Wale has a lot of years in the game.
Yeah, but I'm just because Jaden's a young dude, like, he has all my respect in the world unless he like fucked up or like made some whack shit, but he's too dope, he's too ill, and I just give that credit and that love and that respect where it's due. So it's like, just like I could hear, a new like 444, Jay-Z, I heard that shit, I called No Idea, I was like, yo, I'm beyond inspired. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, this is so dope, thank you. And that was another thing that inspired a lot of the boom bap on this album too, is just the Jay album made me be like, oh damn. And a lot of people, but with Jaden, yeah, that's why I was like, this is so ill, and I think it's super dope. And it's funny how that happened because my producer made a beat like that. Like, he had heard it, and I was like, yo, this is kind of like the Icon joint.
Right, we're talking about his Icon.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, like, this is super ill. I'm gonna write over this, and then obviously it switches up halfway, and it's, totally different, but I was like, the drums are what's pretty much the same. Me and Six have always used like open hi-hats and stuff, so it wasn't anything different from shit that we have done, but the drums were just so ill, I loved it. And then we were gonna change them later. So it was like being inspired by a beat. Like, I can't tell you how many instrumentals I've rapped over current, older, God Lives Through by Tribe Called Quest, this, that, whatever. And then I'll take those raps and just put them on a modern beat or a trap beat or this or that. That's why it's so funny, because fans don't know. It's like half of Bobby Tarantino, for all they know, could have been written over like the most boom bap 90s shit. Right. But because it sounds like it's trap shit, it's super wild. Anyway, we went back and we're gonna then change the drums and make it more unique, if you will, or just something completely different. But it was so dope that I was like, it takes the energy away to change the drums. So why not just hit Jaden and just like be like, yo, I'd like to use this. Yeah, I'd like to give your producers love, credit, and money, pub, for this. And I want you to jump on it. And he did. And yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
That's dope then. So you say that because it kind of takes me to, that's a lot of how you probably approach your mixtapes.
That's why I did that. That's why I did it. It's like, that's why Last Call sounds the way it does. That's why, there's homage to not only, J. Cole's Can I Live in Street Dreams, but also obviously Big L, Casualties of a Dice Game, and The Heist, and so many things like that. So yeah, but it's a difference though. It's still like, I think the reason I have all this, the respect that I do from my peers and my predecessors is because no matter how inspired, it's still my flows, my rhymes, my life.
Oh, your artistry is still there.
100%, yeah. But I could listen to, Cole in certain instances. Like, for example, even KOD, it's like, to me, KOD is so ill because he took the vibe sonically of a lot of the young generation and the hip, but he like put the bars on it. Right. So it's like, that's someone who's inspired essentially by the people he's not talking necessarily in a negative way, but kind of schooling the younger generation, but by using a sound that is quite similar to what we've all been used to with the trap and the this and the that, it's still taking inspiration and turning it into something totally and completely different. And that's what I love, man. That's what I love is that. And Ye, he's the god of that. Like, he would always, just his samples and his cadences and where he gets stuff from. So that's kind of where I learned that, except to just be open and give people their credit and be like, yeah, I love this person or that one.
The next, you drop Young Sinatra, the mixtape after Young Broken Influence.
Yeah.
And you do Young Sinatra too,
yeah.
On that mixtape. And, you use the DJ Premier group home, the Superstar beat.
Damn. You kind of throwing me back now.
Nah, it's dope. Wild. Like, I want to get into, because we had the first Young Sinatra joint, right? Yeah. Kind of inspired by wanting to have your own crew.
Yeah.
And Then you get to the mixtape and you do Young Sinatra 2. Now it's becoming a thing. Now you're setting up tradition because not only, look, I'm gonna break this out for you.
Okay.
Not only, the beat is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But it's Illmatic.
Snap.
The famous AZ Life's a Bitch verse.
Yes. Yo,
gets
this is
scratched into
dope.
the vocals.
Some Nardwuar shit right here. This is kind of gangster, dog.
I'm inspired by Narwhal. I do the
go.
same thing with my interviews. I sample. But talk about that. As you start putting together Young Sinatra 2, and that's the reissue
Can I put
of
this here?
Illmatic. Yeah. But talk about, once you get into Young Sinatra 2,
Yeah.
that you start using similar familiar elements, but building on that story and
The
that
first
character.
one, I'm trying to remember. Did I do Life's a Bitch on the first one or not?
Yeah, you had.
I did.
Yeah, you had.
And then
the
I brought
AZ
it back
scratches.
again. Yeah. That to me, I just thought the shit sounded ill. Like I just thought it was so dope. Life's a Bitch, and this is when the internet was really starting to take off, and you could find like instrumentals and acapellas and different things like that on YouTube, and rip it and take it, and I would put it into Adobe Audition, which I used to record and do all my stuff in, and yeah, I just loved those super ill vocals, and I just thought they sounded good. Sometimes it's not even about like why, it's like Life's a Bitch and then you die, but I'm kind of doing more like flex raps,
Right.
Fun braggadocio rap. So does it really mesh? Like not necessarily. That's why I feel like on YS4, I'm really talking about some shit,
Right.
that's a lot deeper, but
But it was dope that you still used the AZ vocals, which
Yeah.
I think for day one fans, it's like, oh shit, this is really Young Sinatra 4, like the same themes, right? And, if I'm a new fan and a lot of your fans are younger who may not know, to me, AZ Life's a Bitch. Like if you're a hip hop head, like you got to be able to recite that verse.
that's
to me.
common. That's like you gotta know 100%.
Right. So you're schooling actually people by using the AZ vocal. Like a lot of people who don't know who AZ
I agree,
is now learn.
and very similar to his shit. Visualizing and realizing, like just coming in that way. I've done every single
Right.
Young Sinatra. I started off with visualizing and realizing, and then this one I did My Life is Fucking Crazy. So to me, yeah, it's dope. I love it, and you're right. I love that being able to school. These people who might not really know about, because there's a lot, man. I think everybody knows Wu-Tang. Like, sure, the hip hop heads, like, you better know who Wu-Tang is. You know what I mean? But there is a younger generation, and even just a different demographic
Right.
of people who sure have heard Wu-Tang Clan, but like, do they know every member? Do they
Right.
know truly like the Tao of Wu?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's I couldn't believe it. That's why the fact that they got on a record with me was like,
Right.
wow,
Insane.
insane.
And we're gonna get to that. One more thing I wanted to talk about, because I just want to go back to the Young Sinatra tape, man. 1-800 was a huge single for you.
Yeah.
Speaking about mental health, it's a big topic now for a lot of artists. Positivity, giving something for people to inspire them.
Yeah.
But this isn't new for you. This might be your biggest single, definitely your biggest single. But
Definitely, yeah.
I was listening back to Young Sinatra and I hear "As I Am,"
Yeah.
and it's like, yo,
Damn.
Bobby's really been on this shit for a long time.
For sure, yeah.
What do you feel a way when you get that criticism? Like, I know I've heard you talk about the criticism of people saying that you're too positive, if that's
definitely.
such a thing.
Yeah.
But this has always been who you are. Like, this isn't anything new if you've been listening to Logic since day one.
Yeah. I think most people who have a problem or issue with me have a problem or issue with themselves. I think that's really what it is. Like, I'm a positive dude. I came up from where I came from, and through struggling and adversity, and made it, the underdog, the person who wasn't supposed to be here, food stamps, welfare. It's crazy though. I think when I say that, like, people are so used to, yeah, rappers, yeah, welfare, you came up, whatever. But it's like, nah, dog, like, I used to wake up with roaches on my face and eating powdered milk and shit. Like that's real. And to be able to make it out of that the negativity and the violence and all this bullshit and be here, it's crazy, but to be here for a positive message. I mean, that's why Ghostface called me the other day and he was like, yo, we want you to know. He's like, you ain't no C MC, you ain't no D artist, you're an A. And he was like, straight up, he's like, A fucking plus. Wow. He's like, you don't understand. He's like, when it comes to all these people, he's like, you're right up there, top, upper echelon, MC. He's like, you're doing it, you're positive, you're doing your thing. And he's like, fuck anybody who tells you different. And for that, and then he passed the phone to the RZA, and the RZA's like, bomb, motherfucker. So it's like, to have these people that I've always loved, revered, and respected tell me, yo, and he's saying, you're doing it right, you're a good dude, you're not fucking around, you're not out here bullshitting. It's like, man, That's all I could ever want.
That's dope,
So yeah, that criticism, it used to be hard. You know, people, because I'm like, man, how come they don't like me? How come they don't like me? And I won't get too into it because this is all, you know, it's personal. But I was on the phone with Cole the other day talking about, you know, shit like that. And it's so funny that, you know, he was just reminding me like none of these people matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like what really matters is what you think about yourself. And I love myself and I'm proud of myself. Right.